Yes.
I have a question. Can you tell us where you started off? What was your first job?
What was my first job? My first job was at Reed's Drive-In in Excelsior. It was a family drive-in, and so all of us worked there. There were 6 of us. My oldest sister Roxanne did move to Minneapolis with us, so there were 5 of us, and we all worked in the drive-in. And I created havoc at the drive-in. There were usually several positions, like someone would be the car hop, someone would set up the trays, and someone would cook. And when I was there, I did all of those. And I had to learn that it really annoyed people when I would step over them and take over their job. So that was one of my first early lessons in maybe not doing everything myself. But that was my very first job. And when I think about the jobs I had along the way and how they contributed to my development, I worked at Reed's Drive-In, I managed a Hallmark store, I worked at a grocery store, I worked at a pharmacy. All of those experiences, I think, helped develop, customer service focus, but just a lot of growth in how you have to deal with people every day. It's always people. That's everybody's job, is dealing with people. So that was my very first job.
Don't be shy.
At what point in your career did you know that you wanted to succeed or go higher than what you were at?
I think, at what point in my career did I know I wanted to succeed or go higher? That's, I think, an interesting question, because I believe as a female, all I really thought about was working as hard as I could in the position that I was in, and I did have a hard time seeing myself at the next step. And that's where both my brother and a couple other mentors that I worked with really helped me see myself in a different role. So probably by the time I was moving from Vice President of Human Resources to President Chief Operations Officer, then I knew that I wanted to move on. I also, after I was sick, and when I came back, I did decide that I wanted to get the company, I wanted to get it turned around, I wanted to get it back in growth, I wanted to get it to $1 billion, and I wanted to become CEO. So that was the first time that I kind of threw my stake in the ground around, I do want to be CEO. For many years it was kind of like, well, this is okay. And I thought, no, I do want to be CEO. So that would have been the turning point for me.
How have you found success? How have you found success, or how have you been successful communicating your vision down to your 3,500 salons? And you talk about culture and customer service and vision. How do you get down to the lowest level of an organization of your size to communicate your commander's intent?
It's a great question, because we really do believe that we need to get all the way to the stylist level with our vision of the brand and the organization. And so we do a lot of different things. We still do a lot of personal meetings, big meetings, zone meetings, conventions where we bring the managers, franchisees, and those folks in, and we really get as prepared as we can and have as many ways that we can interact with them, not just from the stage, but other ways as well in a meaningful way. But we really leverage social media very well with our stylist community, with our franchisee community. There are 11 executives, and all of us are on the road all the time. And when we're on the road, we aren't just with franchisees and meetings. We're in the salons. We're in manager franchisee meetings. But a lot of our executives spend a lot of time in the salons on the floor, just talking to and interacting with stylists, so we keep a connection to what's really happening in those salons. When we ask them to do something, we really want to know what it might mean to them. And so we really do try and stay very connected at the salon level. So it's a variety of different ways. We do a lot of video. Like I said, we do a lot of social media. Our stylist Facebook community has been really effective in that regard, pulling everybody together. Yes?
You can see by the composition of the room there's a lot of type A males in this room, and there are many females that are coming up through the ranks that are going to be great leaders sometime in the future. What advice can you give to all of our type A males to help facilitate that, the females transition into becoming leaders with us?
I believe that I had so many great male mentors. I believe that your role as a mentor, you're expressing confidence, your willingness to give them good, honest feedback, building a relationship, and really making sure they know what it is that you expect. I really, one of the things that sometimes in the female leadership role, men are sometimes reluctant to give feedback about being defensive, not accepting feedback, some of those harder things. And the stronger your relationship is with the women that you work with, the more likely that they will accept that feedback, and they need that feedback. And so I would say that that's one of the things that is really helpful. I also think oftentimes the women working together and allowing the women to work together and develop some ways that they want to give one another feedback can help as well. We do have several just solely female leadership groups so they can talk about the things that are different for them as leaders and learn in a group with them, with just themselves. I believe that helps as well. But I believe your confidence, I believe that men have a lot greater ability to see, to have a vision, clarity of vision. I don't certainly want to get political at this point in anything, but if you were to look back at Hillary and Obama, Obama had a vision, Hillary had an action plan. Women often have action plans and they don't have a vision. There's a great Harvard Business article called The Vision Thing, and it talks about one of the key differences between men and women in leadership is visioning. And also helping women. It seems like one of those skills that's kind of hard to learn, but if women could get better at visioning and seeing themselves in the next role and really paying attention to how that might feel and look. So I think helping this, men have skills. Men can, first of all, they can shut everything out. When my husband went to work, he did not worry about the field trip slip. He did not worry about lunch money. He didn't give a crap about whether or not their clothes matched. Okay? And so men have the ability to compartmentalize. And so women, first of all, need to learn to focus. Probably the two things that I would say is focus and visioning are probably two things that I think, although people may tell me I shouldn't make those blanket statements, I think are really, really different. And my son Andy helped me do a better job of visualizing because his coach, now I wouldn't necessarily go out and do visualization myself, but if you have, my husband calls my boys the 3 cubs. So if you have 3 cubs and someone says you would need to do something for one of the cubs, you're going to do it. So when they said with Andy that I needed to help him visualize, I actually visualized with him in the car on the way to the games where the puck was coming, how it was coming at him, whether he was going to get it or not. We always laughed because I would run plays and I would say, okay, Andy, it's out in the corner. They're pulled out in front of the net. It came off the right side. The guy passed to the defenseman. It's coming into the corner, out of the corner, into the front. Into the net, Andy. Did you get it? He said, no. I said, what do you mean? Most of the time he got it and sometimes he didn't. But that little exercise gave me an opportunity to think about what is it that you can visualize? And for me, even visualizing being on stage, visualizing, being in certain positions or situations helped me. When even being here this morning, I wanted to be in this room. I wanted to feel what this room was like. A lot of times I would have been here the night before. Because I need to visualize myself where I'm going to be. So I think vision and focus are two things that women could work on developing skills, and there are a number of different ways to do that. But I love the dynamic differences, and I think it's working together that makes us stronger. It's not being all one or the other. But I do think that focus and vision are two things that men are a lot better at than women are, and that is a leadership skill that you need to have in order to really succeed at the highest levels. So. Yes?
You talk about balance, and balance as a leader. So we also know that people that put a lot of effort into the career. They put family second to career, are highly rewarded. You as an employer, what are your roles is to try to balance that out or encourage people to balance family with career?
Great question. And, I think in our organization, we do try and clearly acknowledge that people at the higher levels of the organization do need to make sacrifice in order to have those positions, so they do have to compromise that balance. I think with the employees overall, we try and promote a level of flexibility that doesn't necessarily mean you aren't going to be asked to work a lot, but you can have some flexibility in order to accommodate that balance. The other thing that's interesting in the workplace, and it was something else I wanted to mention and I didn't get in my comments, but one of the things in the workplace that we've also tried to do is make sure that we know and acknowledge those men who are supporting career women. And that sounds funny, but it's the other side of this. If there's a gentleman in our organization who, whose wife is really the primary wage earner, and he needs additional flexibility and he needs other things in order to accommodate that, we need to help that as well. So trying to do both of those. But one of the things I think about when you say that is one of the reasons why, as an employer, many of you may be looking for positions outside of the military. And some of our most recent hires are military. And the value that you bring into an organization, because you do have a very clear perspective on what it takes to sacrifice. You aren't necessarily looking for that incredible level of balance. You appreciate the balance that we provide. Your skills are very wanted in business organizations. We have a recent Iraqi Marine vet in our social media department, Aaron, and it's really interesting to watch Aaron work and the skills that he's brought with him, because he handles all of our social media as a digital strategist. He never gets rattled. I mean, we had a situation the other day where one of our stylist boyfriends had a body in his backyard, Beloit, Wisconsin. I mean, those things tend to get a little bit blown up in social media, and we know Aaron's going to have to respond to it, and he does a great job. And I think it's because of his military background, the way he views things, and his calm, diligent manner. So I kind of went a little bit off on a tangent there. But as far as balance, we actually try hard not to use the word balance as much as flexibility, commitment to family. We try and make sure that when things are really, we have a woman right now whose husband is dying of cancer, we provide them a great level of support and flexibility. But we also know there are times when they need to be on the road for 4 weeks straight, when we're on the road. We do things like send them the husband's thank you notes, the person who's at home a thank you note, and say thank you for supporting. But I think some of it's just not setting balance as a clear expectation, but more flexibility. We've used the word interval a little bit more. Because I think it's really hard to get it balanced. And then I think people always feel like they're failing if it's not balanced. Okay? Yes?
Ma'am, you had talked about pairing up your strong Minneapolis franchise with your Boston franchise. What guidance did you give them to link them two entities together so they can be successful?
We've had a lot of different discussions about that mentorship approach and how much structure we want to provide around that. We had a mentorship program that didn't work all that well because it was too structured. So we've really gone to what we call a franchisee connection program. So we connect two franchisees and let them determine how much they want to work together. We always ask that the experienced franchisee goes to that franchisee's location, that franchisee goes to the experienced franchisee's location. They share kind of their issues and opportunities and decide how much they want to work together. The other thing we do is we do recognize those folks who step into that mentorship role and make sure that they get some recognition for helping us with those new franchisees in new markets. But we've actually backed off a little bit of the structure that we had before, because it just seems like in some cases we were thinking these mentorship programs might last like 6 to 12 months. In some cases, a couple of trips and everybody's on board and they're feeling really comfortable and they'll call them, but they don't see them as often. In other cases, it may last 2 years. So we let them really determine how to develop that relationship and what each of them needs. But it's been very well received. Okay. Other questions?
So you talked about the value of trust and one of the most important things from an executive's perspective. Can you share with us the story? You and I have talked about it with your ad campaign.
How could I forget that?
I don't know. That's why I'm bringing it up, because it's such a good story in a way that we can recognize maybe we've got a generational gap. Sometimes it's difficult for us as senior leaders to trust in our subordinates to do the right thing.
Yes. Okay, you caused me to think about a couple of things. When we talk about the different world that we live in, or for those of us that are older looking at some of the challenges that we have, try being in marketing and social media. So we have our target market are kind of the 20 to 40-year-old guys. And so when we do creative, in my mind, they do this really stupid, corny, bizarre stuff. And so about a year ago, Ray and I were at a board meeting, and they sent us a commercial to view that we were going to launch during the College Bowl series. And this, you may have seen the commercial. It's called Ralph Funzel. And Ralph Funzel have you seen it with the guy with the long hair? Okay, now you can imagine, Ray's a little older than I am. I'm kind of old. And we see this bizarre commercial with this guy with weird long hair in a back alley with a couple of really ugly guys talking about becoming an astronaut and going to Great Clips. I mean, can you imagine? I mean, it's like our ad agency and our marketing department has lost their mind. I mean, Ray and I sat in Phoenix trying to figure out how we were going to pull the commercial. We truly believed that we should pull the commercial. We truly believed that it was not representative of the brand. We believed we didn't want to be associated with ugly people. We believed we didn't want to be associated with ugly people in a back alley. And we were plotting all Friday afternoon on how we were going to pull this TV commercial. By about 4 o'clock, I said to Ray, we're going to create such incredible disruption. We'll blow the agency out of the water. We'll blow our marketing staff out of the water. The fact is, it would do less damage to run that commercial and take the risk with the customers than blowing up our internal organization and trying to explain to them why we don't like this incredibly stupid commercial. And so, I mean, and you guys, it was really hard. I mean, it took everything in us to let that commercial run. It was really hard. We hated it. We had overthought that commercial. We didn't look at it at all like the customers would look at it. We didn't look at it at all like a young person would look at it. We looked at it like a couple of old fuddy-duddies would look at it. And that commercial aired, and it became one of our most popular, longest living commercials with more social media value. It probably prompted last first quarter was one of our strongest quarters, and we were going to pull it. But we had to trust those folks who think differently than we do. We had to trust those folks who are living in a social media digital age, and they know that the corny commercial, we like that AT&T Sappy commercial. They don't do anything. I mean, you've got to have an edge. You've got to be a little bit different, and that's hard for some of us to let go of that. So that was really a good lesson for us, to trust those folks who know more about. I believe that in the communication, in that marketing arena, we used to be able to have one commercial that would hit everybody. That's just not the case anymore. It's just not the case. A 65-year-old is not going to like the same thing that a 22-year-old guy is going to like. And so we go back to that often. Whenever I ask Ray his opinion, or if he wants to see a commercial, he'd say, well, I lost my credibility on Ralph Funzel. And And we laugh about it, but it was a really good lesson on two things: listening to your people, trusting your people, taking a risk, and also knowing that there's real differences in the millennials and the younger people, what they're going to respond to. And the last thing you would want is me or Ray developing a TV commercial that might be effective with them. So did you like Ralph Funzel?
Yes.
Yes. And so bottom line was, when we got all through that and backed up and said, when you really look at Ralph Funzel from a customer perspective, all you do is laugh, think it's pretty funny, and you remember online check-in. So how can that be bad? If we're associated with laughter, good humor, and online check-in, that's all we could ask for.